And last but certainly not least, Sue Townsend from the Field Studies Council is going to talk on FSC links, 5 more years of caring and sharing, and then in large capital letters, thank you, HLF.
Absolutely, thank you. Hello everybody, very nice to see you, and especially as so many people have run away, something to do with trains or some excuse, so it's really nice to be here. What I'm going to do is just swap power presentations to make sure...
Where's the controller? Ah, there he is. Sorry, I should have done that. There we go, you just press that button.
Which button?
The forward button.
Thank you. Okay, so what I wanted to do was say that many of you have already spoken to us about this project, and this is something for us to share to you as something of a celebration at the end of the day for a quarter of an hour, really. So this is where I want you to do, on the count of 3, just cheer, please. 1, 2, 3, yay! Because it's really brilliant to actually find of a project that does share, that has got some funding, and that's, I know, what we're short of so often, and this is what I hope we'll be able to do with this project. So, thank you HLF, and I will be labouring the point about HLF a little bit, because I think I want to share with you something that they said to us. So I want to keep sharing to make sure that we all benefit from the experience we went through, which was sometimes a little painful in raising the bids, and I'm sure many of you have a similar experience. Sometimes a little painful, but not always. This is Kieran, who some of you know very, very well. He's already presented, and he's actually going to be the project manager for this particular programme. So we've already appointed, and we've already decided, so you've got 5 years of Kieran as well as me, so that should be quite good for us all. I wanted to point out how this came to be, because really the FSC, as so many of you know, we're a schools organisation. We're actually not really a biological recording organisation. We have a huge turnover, we have a good business model, but 80% of that is schools work. Most of it with A-levels, but it's still schools work. And we haven't heard very much about school children in this particular conference, but it's something else that we should focus on. But we do have a central direction on educating about the environment in any way, and that, thank goodness, includes those of us that have grown up a little bit and want to focus more on biological recording, because there aren't very many opportunities within the school curriculum to do this. So I'm particularly grateful, and perhaps it's because I shout a lot, to have actually made sure we safeguard this biodiversity recording within our own direction of where we're travelling within the Field Studies Council. Oh. Ah. Is that better? Okay, so we put it forward into a vision. All organisations have to have a vision nowadays, don't they? I mean, even NBN have got a vision, and we're calling it good business management. Anyway, so we appoint and designate staff. We have Kieran. We are interviewing just next week for more, because we believe we need more than one staff to deliver that project. We need to be underpinned, and so many of us have run projects that are bolted on to our organisation. I've been experiencing that myself. They're not central to it. They're not something that's really integrated, and that's something I think we should all be working at for the sustainability of whatever brilliant idea we've had. And so I'm working through the finance teams and the HR teams. I work with other partners who also work with their finance teams and HR teams. Sometimes, once again, a bit of a painful process, because it's not always easy. We also have to work with our own staff. We have a network of centres around the country. There's 19 Field Studies Council centres. They're not all residential. Many of them are day courses. But even so, what we want to do is strengthen our own internal understanding of biodiversity. This might seem like a shameful thing to say, and I know I'm being recorded, but I'll say it anyway. And that's that quite a lot of the A-level syllabuses have got precious little opportunity for biodiversity, which means our own staff are concentrating so much more on the process of science, admirable, yes. On statistics, essential, yes. But we want the love, the passion and the accuracy in recording British and UK biodiversity data to come through as well. So our own staff are an important part of this to integrate with this BioLinks development. And many of you know FSC publications. Some people said to me, oh, I didn't know you ran training courses, because they know you solely through publications. It is a big unit with us. And also, as I've shamelessly put around the tea rooms, they've got a sale on for a month, so if you want anything from the publications department, now's the time. But publications don't just do the commercially viable publications. As you can probably imagine, this was not a bestseller. Not everybody in the world, for some reason, wants to know about the Atlas of Bees and Wasps of Shropshire. Don't ask me why, I've got 2 copies on my shelf. But that does mean that sometimes when we produce things, it's for small audiences. So if we're trying to get economic models, we all struggle because we cannot. Because we know these small audiences are important, but nonetheless, we've got problems in servicing that small audience. And that's the same around many of our organisations. Look at that, isn't that wonderful? I'll just let you stare at that for a minute. I was proud of that one because if you're going to do a vision statement, isn't it rather nice to have a cartoon one rather than one with bullet points, with things that come out of it at the end as success means this, tick, 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 tick. So I just want you to stare at that for a minute and just look at what the FSC value and why we managed to get this project. Because they've given me a lot of time to think of this project. They've given me support to bid for it, which meant that it's actually not really mine, because the person who developed the thinking is Kieran. In fact, I'll share a little secret with you. Most of this PowerPoint's his, not mine. So we've got in here a project that will work because we've got a committed project officer, but it's embedded within the spirit of the organisation, which is something else that's really important. This is all about data. This means that if we've got people actively engaged and working, we hope to get more data back to all of you through the NBN network, which is part of the partnership deal. So thank you, because many of you helped us to shape this. We went out to consultation. You'll have met Kieran, you'll have met Charlie as well, some of you, who've been going around networking to actually consult to see what's needed. We didn't get to all of you, I suspect. There are some people saying, I've never heard of that. Because that's the nature of our rather fragmented organisation. We did post it through the NBN, I promise. We did post it through lots of other places. But if we've missed you out, I'm sorry. But we did talk to many people through workshops, through stakeholder meetings of other people who wanted data, other people who wanted trained volunteers. We did an online survey, which many of you contributed to, which we're very grateful to. And we also looked at site managers. Because what's the point of data if we can't get it back to our site managers to make sure they can use it? So data, what's it worth? It's worth a lot to site managers if we want them to organise their sites properly and take appropriate action. There's 2 outputs from this, which I'm going to get Kieran to tweet for us today, just to make sure that the links are there for you. Because it's another thing that we're quite proud of, that the FSC Biolinks went out and put a lot of effort into consulting people. You may benefit from this in your bids. You may actually think, oh, is that what people wanted? Is that what the FSC found people wanted? We could do with that in our area. We could look at that. So please download that and read it. It's free, use it. The other thing that we got is a development plan for training provision. Now, I'm guilty of this. For years, the FSC produced a very nice glossy brochure. I took a few into the cafe there. Many of you have taken them away for 2018. They are inspiring, actually. There's some lovely courses I just wish I could get on. Some of them are slightly badly targeted. Are they really introductory courses? Are they really advanced courses? And getting the level right is one of those things that's really difficult. So one of the things we're trying to do is to make sure we have a training pathway that we've put up for others to use to make sure that you're targeting training at the right level. I'm not saying it's right yet, it's still for consideration, but it's already been welcomed, and it's based largely on an idea that we all had jointly, but the BSBI, with myself and Sarah Wilde, who sadly isn't here today, developed a field identification skills certificate, which some of you are nodding at me about, for the Botanical Society and botanical skills. And they did look closely at how we can actually think about what level we're at in our identification development. And we hope that our training will match that. The taxon groups we're going to use are pictured up there. I'll let you read those for yourself. I haven't got much time, so I won't go through every slide in detail. But you can see that we've got quite an ambitious programme, but remember, we've got 5 years. We will be working with partners on this. We've spoken to so many people. We've spoken to the Dipterist Forum. Believe it or not, we've spoken to the Earthworm Society of Great Britain as well. So we've spoken to a lot of taxon groups, and that means that we hope we've got their input. And this is what we want, and this is why we want it now. I sound like one of those protest movements. That we want to build on the momentum, because we've done quite a few projects. Some of you will remember a guy called Pete Boardman, who did the first project with us about identification and recording. He's now gone on to Natural England, but he was an inspiration for so many of you, a really accomplished dipterist who managed to get so many people trained in so many taxa. We want to make sure we're capitalising on those sorts of momenta to make sure that we can use a useful place for the FSC in the recording sector for the future. So we're hoping to secure and to develop sustainable communities. And we've got 2 regions in which we're doing that. One of them, and we've been talking to Giggle as well, so we're having a giggle with Gigglers, because what we're trying to do is to make sure we're linking with the London region. We want to consolidate where we've been at our strength, and that's in the West Midlands region. Because although we're big, in terms of our biodiversity training, we're small. So what we have to do is to make sure we're not running before we can walk. Other partners, you've heard already the lovely story from the Natural History Museum and their identification trainers for the future, a project that NBN have been involved in as well. We want to work further because they've got this fantastic training model to upskill people. They're looking at the way to link that. So we're already talking about collaborating in that area. And that's what the BioLinks means, to make sure that we learn from people who've also been exploring this. Can you read that? It's a bit of a bright green, but really our aim number 1 is to record and tell the story of the natural heritage. Well, this is what we're all about. So this won't come as a great surprise to you. And really we're filling in the gaps in distribution knowledge, which would be wonderful. We've all been talking about complete data sets. But we can't do it unless we train our volunteers. And I'm just going to pick one from each of those slides rather than do all of them, because I think that you'll know this, and I don't want to bore you to death with my voice. But we want to increase the number, and we're focusing on invertebrates. We've already heard that quite a lot of the data sets are biased away from invertebrates. We'd like to make sure it's the other way around, so we are focusing on invertebrates. Linked with that, oops, is that better? I know that on the left-hand side, you should be able to, I hope, see that clearly, and that's this one here. That this is not a data flow model for a change, but this is a training development model that we think people have got a sort of hierarchy of skills. And some of you in this room are already going to be the national experts for whatever group that is. Some of you will be regional experts. Some of you will have advanced levels. Some of you are intermediates. Some of you might just be beginners at something, but really important, isn't it, to encourage those beginners? And some of us might be at introductory levels. And of course, we're not the same for every taxa. So I'm not too bad at freshwater invertebrates. You put me in front of a dipteran and I still run screaming. I need training. But you know, these things are different for different taxa. We've got a whole page of descriptions of the training level. And because this is all freely available to you, I'm not going to go through it in detail. But I thought with the audience we had, I'd focus mostly on the top bits. So it goes down as a knowledge, skills, motivation and confidence type pillars on which we've built those levels. And I think there's a lot of room at the top. I think what we need, when I look at the gaps that people are talking to me about, a lot of it's about verification, about support, about mentoring, about training. So we need to move people up to those top levels. And this is the top, the apex of the volunteer learning pathway that Kieran's developed through BioLinks. And if I just read the one on the right, which is about confidence, the pink box, confident in ability to identify those groups and has specialist knowledge, requires verification for some of those more difficult species, but they're able to teach and consistently support others. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had those sorts of people with that confidence to be doing that across loads and loads of taxa? If I just pick another one out, because the other problem is motivation. We've seen people here, just by the fact you're here, I think we've got people who are personally passionate about building comprehensive regional and national data sets. Surely this is why you're giving up your Friday afternoon, to be part of this whole process of improving our data. I think we're all motivated to inspire others. Sometimes I confess I'm not very good at it, but I'm trying to inspire folks, to inspire others and record in your areas, to collate records and to make sure that we're building on that. So there's lots of worthy words in there, and I'd encourage you to have a look at it. And if we manage to do that and develop nature's guardians, isn't that a nice phrase? To make sure that we've got the data to inform decision makers, that would be amazing. In turn, that would strengthen the biological recording network. It's already pretty strong, just look at us all. But I think through community engagement, upskilling experts, sharing good practice, these are all real brilliant examples of how we can make that go further. And lastly, we need effective project management. I believe we've got that, and I hope you'll all trust the FSC to move this project forward and be part of it, because I think we can only do it with you to deliver a few legacies. And if you look on the left, we want upskilled volunteers, we want resilience within our own organisation, we're being partly selfish about this, strengthened networks and sustained digital resource. And we think we'll see some of that by the boxes on the right. And that's where I'd like to leave it, and hope you'll celebrate with us on a delivery of training and supporting volunteers for 5 years in our 2 regions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sue.
Good timing?
Yes, excellent time. Don't go away, there might be a question. Thank you very much, Sue. Oh, I'm sorry, don't tread on me. We've got a minute or two for questions directly to Sue. Yes.
Thank you.
But the other one is, there's one bit at the top you may want to add, which is, we're getting now more, hopefully, people into the expert level or closer to it, but these experts are good in identifying what we're now lacking, and we're seeing that on an international level is the people who then take that step further, describing the new species.
Ah, yes, okay.
I think that's where we also should think of if we can add some training into that, because the next step is actually not that bad. It's not that difficult from one to the next, but people just lack the courage or the confidence.
Okay, so to actually formally get into taxonomy to make sure we're describing those new species. Fair point. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you.
Yes, at the back there.
It's not really a question, it's just a plug. The NFBR conference next year, which will be joined with FSC, will be concentrating on various aspects of training.
It will.
So you're all welcome to join us in May next year.
Thank you, Elaine.
Good plug. Any other questions for Sue? Yes, one at the back there.
Well, it's a comment really, Sue, just to say that both this conference and the NFBR and the previous NBA, I did not hear the usual call, which is, when the old generation pass on, we're in terrible trouble, there's nobody coming up to sort of follow us on. That is a past agenda, which is now died. But I would ask, as one of the older people, that you look to see if you can at least suck us dry of our knowledge. In terms that we now have a lot more exciting ways of getting information and keys produced. Because because that's our legacy. It's not sort of a happy memory, what a nice chap he was to work with. It should be all the keys that he's left behind. And you can help us with that, Paul.
Ian, we would love to. Thank you. I'm taking that in front of witnesses as an offer because we need people who can train at those high levels to make sure that you do indeed bleed your brain on us, Ian. Just make sure that we've got all the information about caddis and invertebrates that you care to share, and we'll be with you and to help you share it as well, because I think you were only talking to me about photographs, for example, and how to share more of the open source photographs correctly with the correct permissions, and we can do all those sorts of things to help you to be a more effective communicator by doing some of the messy jobs for you and just using the bits that you can offer. So we'd love to do that. Thank you.
Can I just add to that as well? I'd like to say that if anybody's got any ideas or anything for the project, they want to be involved, just get in contact with us. We're happy to hear from you.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sue.